Santa Cruz skateboards. Santa Cruz, aka NHS, made two visuals that rewired how skate graphics spoke. Their simple red circle and a severed blue screaming hand became the loudest voice in skate arts. One spoke like a stamp, and the other yelled like a siren. The company had roots in surf, but in 1973, founders Richard Novak, Doug Hout, and Jay Sherman were challenged to produce 500 skateboards. Pushing the business from cheap surfboards into high-quality decks, the scene was already getting saturated, and the brand needed a bold identity. Enter Jim Phillips. In 1978, he drew a red disc, locked the name inside, and angled the letters so they'd bite. The triangular A's gave the word a backbone. Tight kerning packs the letters with zero air, like hardware snuggled by a wrench. Whether on a wheel, shirt, or deck, the design commands attention. Then, in 1985, the screaming hand tears in. It's a blue, severed hand, mouth wide open in the palm, teeth jagged, tendons twisting. Motion lines whip around it, so you feel speed like in comic books. The anatomy is grotesque, but controlled, every groove deliberate. Two visuals, two tones, order and chaos, both unmistakably Santa Cruz. To explain why this stuck, Phillips didn't stop at a logo. He built a full graphic universe, type, characters, borders, so every piece felt related. His son, Jimbo Phillips, carried that DNA forward, keeping the intensity alive. The hand's reach shows up even off the board. A 2013 fashion dispute forced look-alike items to be destroyed. This was after an admission of error, and touring shows for their 30th anniversary made the brand go viral before the digital age. Stickers on helmets, dots on wheels, and screaming hand decals blew up. Board bottoms turned sidewalks into ad space. Kids became couriers, and the mascot traveled farther than any brochure. So Santa Cruz locked a dual system, corporate mark for instant red, feral character for feeling. Next up, a brand that earned trust through engineering, then letting the typography do the talking. Tracker Trucks. Engineering as a logo. Which brings us to Tracker Trucks. Can a truck company make a logo that feels like a tool you can trust? Tracker did it. They did it by treating its mark like a spec sheet. Founded in 1974 by Larry Balma, Dave Dominy, and Gary Dodds, Tracker set out to build trucks for skateboarding, not borrow parts from roller skates. Balma had worked as a telephone lineman, studied engineering, and became a machinist and fabricator, so his approach was all precision and function. After urethane wheels hit in 1973, he started prototyping hardware that could keep up with the new speed and performance. In 1975, the full track arrived. It was designed from the ground up, and riders felt the difference in speed, turn, and durability. That product-first mindset shaped everything that followed, including how the logo looked and where it showed up. No monster, no skull, just a word set with intention. The logo sits clean, with forms that balance like machined faces. Spacing feels measured, not decorative. You can read it on a sticker flashing by at a park or in a tiny magazine ad. It echoes the benchtop world of calipers, lathes, and torque wrenches. The full track's reputation made that minimal badge read like a guarantee. Tight geometry, no shortcuts, pro-level build. In the book, 40 Years of Skateboard History, the story is clear. Rider input and an engineering ethos guided Tracker's choices. That loop, feedback, refine, test, built a perception of reliability. The cleaner the logo, the louder that message landed. You saw it on shop walls, in catalogs, and on base plates. Always the same. Wild art was the norm, but Tracker's consistency did the heavy lifting. Think car emblems and tool brands. Trust first, style second. Keep the face legible at any size, and you start to operate like a headline, setting the stage for a logo that would dress riders like walking billboards. Vision Streetwear. What happens when your logo looks like a poster from a backstage door? Vision turned that into a blueprint. Founded in 1976 by Brad Dorfman, the company built momentum by backing skaters early and designing gear with them. In mind, Mark Gator Rogowski and Mark Gonzalez wore the flag, shaping the look and pushing the tech. By the mid-'80s, the push into apparel and boards hit full speed. The big shift came with the Vision Streetwear identity, which carried a logo you might mistake for an event flyer. The goal was reach, and it worked across skate and the BMX scene. Greg Evans designed the mark with a nod to the "Frankie Says Relax" tees that flooded 1984's pop culture, big, boxy, and blunt. It reads like a loud poster on a venue door that raised a question people still ask. Was Vision leaning fashion first? Or skate first? The answer shows up in how the logo traveled. It held up under scuffs, stretching, and TV glare, which meant it served both worlds without flinching. Rogowski's first pro model, in 1984, helped fix the word mark to peak-era footage and magazine spreads, giving the label credibility on the deck and on the street. On shoes, tees, and boards, the heavy block type did the job. You could see it in contest shots, in shop windows, and on the sidewalk. Riders became moving billboards, and a hoodie became a sign that you were down with the scene. The design had the snap of post-punk graphics, dense letters, no frills, and a layout that burned into the psyche. Licensing deals, including work with SIMS, widened the pipeline. Apparel took off, and Vision moved from equipment to lifestyle. Media cameos kept the logo in front of audiences beyond skate. Even through ownership changes, the look remained sellable, but as logos got louder, some riders wanted a mark that felt personal, handmade and fast, like graffiti. Being owned by the skater himself also helped Alva skates. Alva's logo carried a rider's rebellious energy without shouting. With a name that moved like a flick of the wrist and burned like fresh paint, Tony Alva launched Alva Skates in 1977 to keep control in skaters' hands. The timing mattered. Skateboarding was growing fast, and outside, money was circling. He set up a company owned and operated by skateboarders, built to reflect the culture from the inside, at a moment when that was rare. That decision shaped the identity as much as the products. You could feel intent in every graphic choice, starting with the way the brand treated its own name. The script mark reads like an autograph you'd rush onto a poster. Fast, fluid, and very punk. Not New York or London punk, surf skate punk that was distinctly Venice Beach. No blocky badge or reference to the current trends. It sits across a deck like a signature across a contract, personal and defiant. Then Alva turned up the heat with the flame. The first deck in 1977 used a die-cut logo and glittering grip, laid over gradients of yellow and orange paint. It didn't need a cartoon character. The color and the cut did the talking, suggesting speed and fire the second you saw it. That vibe got backed up from the roster. Tony Alva brought the edge. Stacy Peralta added historic weight. Eddie Elgato Elguera, Dave Duncan, and Chris Cook pushed the mark into different scenes. Their names in ads and contests made the script feel earned, not just styled. Beyond decks, Alva rolled out conical wheels in bright colors, with slight inset bearings and options like 88A and 101A to match how you rode. The parts looked loud but worked with intention, keeping the skater-first promise intact. By the early 80s, that cursive name stood for autonomy. It said the rider calls the shots. At our halfway mark is a company that welded that same conviction to precision engineering and gave its mythology a skeleton crew. If you're enjoying our mini-skate history of graphics and branding, hit us with a thumbs up and subscribe for more insider knowledge. All right, at number 5 is the mighty Powell-Peralta, a company that built precision into the product and myth into the mark. Powell-Peralta, Bones, and VCJ became a skate video legend. When a skeleton made kids believe in a team like a superhero squad, the Bones Brigade moved like a unit with its own badge. Powell-Peralta existed under the Powell Corporation banner in 1976 and in 1978. George Powell and Stacy Peralta joined forces, kicking off a new era. One side brought engineering, George Powell's aerospace mindset, urethane formulas, and wheel geometry, tuned for real control. The other side built a media engine around their riders, later called the Bones Brigade. Now this mix needed a symbol that could stand next to specs and still feel alive. Enter Vernon Cortland Johnson. VCJ drew skeletons with steady, repeatable line work and an emblematic frame. The famous Ripper tears through a surface like it's breaking into the real world. It felt permanent, not trendy. The lines stayed the same issue after issue. So the logo read, like a seal skull's, bones, banners, and wings, formed a visual rulebook you could spot in a second. The tension was real. Precision products with grim art that had a cartoon aesthetic. Could rad science live with undead iconography? The answer came on tape. The Bones Brigade video show, made with Powell-Peralta and Craig Stechick, put those logos in motion, sold tens of thousands, and proved the iconography played on VHS as well as on wood. The search for Animal Chin kept the myth rolling. Boards moved, graphics flashed, and the symbols acted like characters. The team wore them, rode them, and sold the world through skating. Product names locked the system down. Bones on wheels, cubic on deck shapes, words match pictures, and pictures match performance claims. You saw bones, you thought grip, speed, and solid parts. Powell-Peralta perfected mascot power by fusing engineering credibility to cinematic iconography, setting up a stage where one rider's name would read like a spotlight. Hosoi skates. The halo and the hammer. What logo fits a skater known for the Christ air? The answer had to balance height, style, and a hint of the sacred Christian Hosoi rose fast in the mid-'80s, riding for major names before launching Hosoi skates in 1984. He stood out for vert lines that looked weightless. His fashion sense matched the times. Was it punk, rock and roll, or hip-hop? It was all of them and none of them. Big airs, tight form, and showmanship turned his last name into a brand asset. When he put that name on decks, it needed to carry the same poise he brought to the coping. The mark shifted between a bold nameplate and motifs that nodded to faith. Crosses, halos, and sun rays showed up as symbols, not decoration. That juxtaposition made the identity feel personal. It suggested purpose behind the flair. Layout stayed centered and balanced. The type often sat as a throne for the art, not fighting it. Crisp spacing and weight drew the eye while rays framed the middle like a spotlight. On a deck graphic, the composition felt ready for a magazine cover. Even in motion, the reed stayed sharp, which helped during contests and photo shoots. His signature tricks carried the name. The Christ Air and Rocket Air were visual hooks, so the logo started to read like a stage name. Media coverage reinforced that loop. You saw the moves, then the mark, and the two fused in your head. Over time, his personal arc added depth, addiction, incarceration, then redemption reframed those crosses and halos with real weight. The symbols gained context without changing shape, turning spiritual cues into a through line for the brand. Personal myth met typography here. Next, the street answers with paste-up grit, photocopier ink, and humor sharp enough to cut through glossy walls. Blockhead. Blockhead, Xerox, Punk, and Street Nerve, a logo that felt like it was stapled to a telephone pole. Blockhead looked stolen from a print shop. In spring of 1985, founder Dave Bergthold dropped the brand at a mini-ramp contest in Chico, California. The tone was raw and funny, made by skaters, for skaters. The vibe came from the street, not a showroom. Hand-drawn marks, rough edges, and a face that smirked. You could sense the backyard ramp dust in the lines. The point was simple. Keep it real, keep it loud, and keep it cheap enough to make yourself. Against glossy ads, Blockhead leaned into a stoner sketchbook aesthetic and a paste-up attitude. You'd see big hack type and then a sneer of an illustration under it. Could rough beat refined? On curbs and in pools, the beat-up look matched the beat-up spots. The style read fast and honest. The typography looked carved or stamped, as if punched into a crate. Letters sat a little crooked, like they were set by hand. The Rebel line, in 1985, locked that identity alongside early street style and chaos models. The Rebel's original shape was a classic early 80s surf skate outline with super mellow concave, built for backyard minis and pools. Rishues later used the same art on black dips and offered rider versions with a little more concave and a steeper tail. The idea wasn't fancy print tricks. It was bold texts and gritty drawings. The tone clicked with the rise of street skating. Logos felt like zines you could ride. You didn't need a membership. You needed a curb. Even the first Blockhead shirt was hand-drawn with a Sharpie and used to screen print boards, soaking up ink run after run. Irreverence became a filter. If you got the joke, you were in and ready for a brand that could travel even faster on tape. H Street, a global mark made for VHS. A simple cross turned a low-budget video brand into instant recognition. H High Street kicked things off with a logo that read fast, filmed clean, and got stuck in your head. Formed in 1986 by professional skateboarder Tony Magnuson, Mike Ternasky, and pro skateboarder Dave Ondrecht, the company ran on lean cash and heavy talent. They weren't chasing glossy catalogs. They built a pipeline where parts, riders, and videos moved quickly. That setup needed a logo that could survive camcorder fuzz, photocopied flyers, and stencils on grip tape. Enter the Mark logo. The design draws from the Saltire Cross, also known as St. Andrew's Cross X2. No creature, no bones. Just a bold X with strong symmetry. Could a symbolic X carry the same heat? On their tapes, it did. Shackle Me Not and Hocus Pocus put the brand's eye for new lines and street flow on VHS. The editing leaned on cheap cameras and VCRs, but the skating was sharp. Danny Way, Matt Hensley, Eric Costin, and Sal Barbier broke through that grainy texture, and the cross held up in every frame. The restraint was the trick. Thick bars and clear angles kept legibility when footage blurred mid-ollie. Cut it as a stencil, and you had a fast tag for curbs, ramps, and schoolyards. Print it small in a zine, and it still read. That instant red turned into an instant tribe marker. The symbol also carried a message. The Mark logo stands for Skate Everything. Skateboarding lives forever, and skateboarders bringing peace and friendship to the world through skateboarding. The site today sums it up. We are H Street, born by passion, raised with grit. Skateboarding is in our soul. It's the blood and sweat we leave behind at every bowl, street, or park. A global, peace-forward ethos met a functional, video-proof design, bringing our two schools into clear view for what they really are. Two schools defined the era. Mascot power spoke through characters that moved like teammates on your board. Typeface authority relied on sharp letters and symbols that read fast at any speed. Together, they turned decks into ad campaigns, with meaning you felt before you thought about it. Which skate logos were part of your childhood? Share your thoughts below. I had the Alva Chris Cook, so naturally Alva is burned into my memory. Who should we cover in our future 90s to 2000 logos vid? Thank you for watching.